Giwan Kim stood in the center of the grand chamber, her hands clasped behind her back. Above her, the crystalline ceiling of Apex Prime stretched into infinity, reflecting light from a dozen different suns. Round her, seated on floating platforms that hummed with ancient technology, were the representatives of the Galactic Council. 12 species, each older than human civilization itself, each with eyes that judged her and everyone she represented. She had prepared for this moment for 3 years. Every word of her presentation had been carefully chosen. Every data point verified 100 times. Earth's finest minds had contributed to the proposal that would decide humanity's future among the stars. Behind her stood 6 other humans, the best Earth could offer: scientists, philosophers, artists, and peacekeepers. They were meant to show the council that humanity deserved a place at the table. The Thalari hierarch spoke first. His voice echoed through the chamber like grinding stones. He was tall, his skin covered in scales that shimmered with an oily purple sheen. His species had been spacefaring for over 10,000 years. To him, humans were children playing with fire. "We have reviewed your application," the hierarch said. "We have studied your history, your wars, your endless conflicts. We have examined your genetic structure and found it wanting. Your species is fractured, violent, and unstable." Guan felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her expression neutral. She had expected resistance, but not this level of hostility. The hierarch continued, his words falling like hammers. "In your short existence, you have nearly destroyed yourselves 7 times. Your planet still bears the scars of your nuclear age. Your people cannot agree on basic principles of governance. You fight over resources, over beliefs, over the color of your skin." He leaned forward on his platform. "Tell us, Ambassador Kim, why should we allow such a species to spread chaos among the stars?" Guan stepped forward. "Because we learned from our mistakes," she said, her voice steady. "Every species has a dark period in their history. Don't deny ours, but we grew beyond it, united. Earth has been at peace for 40 years. We've eliminated poverty, disease, and hunger. We've turned our weapons into tools of exploration." A different council member spoke, a being that looked like flowing water held together by force fields. Its voice sounded like waves crashing. "Peace for 40 years? We have maintained peace for 4,000 years. Your accomplishment is nothing." Another council member, a creature with too many limbs and eyes that glowed red, added its voice. "Your genetic diversity is a weakness. You have no unified biological advantage. Some of you are strong, others weak. Some intelligent, others not. You are inconsistent." Jiwan wanted to argue that diversity was a strength, not a weakness, but she could see the decision had already been made. The council had not gathered to consider humanity's application. They had gathered to reject it. This was a formality, a show of power. The hierarch raised one clawed hand. "The council has reached a verdict. Humanity is deemed genetically and culturally deficient. Your species poses a threat to galactic stability. Your application for membership is denied. Furthermore, humanity is hereby restricted to your home system. Any attempt to establish colonies beyond Sol will be met with corrective action." The words hit Jiwan like physical blows: restricted, quarantined, imprisoned in their own solar system. She thought of the millions of humans living on Mars, on the moons of Jupiter, on the orbital stations that circled Earth. She thought of the ships being built for deep space exploration, of the dreams of generations who had looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. "You cannot do this," Jiwan said, her voice rising despite her best efforts. "We have rights. We are a sentient species. We have achieved faster than light travel. We have earned our place." "You have earned nothing," the hierarch said coldly. "You will return to Earth and inform your leaders of our decision. Sentinel ships are already being deployed around your system. Any vessel that attempts to leave will be destroyed. This conversation is over." The platforms began to rise, lifting the council members away. Giwan wanted to scream, to demand they listen, but the other humans touched her shoulders gently. There was nothing more to say. They had lost before they even began. 12 hours later, Giwan sat in her quarters aboard the human transport ship. They were already heading back to Earth, escorted by council ships to ensure they didn't stray. She had sent her report to Earth's leadership. The response had been silence. What was there to say? A knock on her door broke her thoughts. "Come in," she said. Hyun Park entered. He was a compact man with sharp eyes and gray hair despite being only 45 years old. As Earth's chief military strategist, he had argued against sending the delegation in the first place. He had predicted this exact outcome. "I won't say I told you so," Han said, sitting down across from her. "Please don't," Juan replied. She rubbed her eyes. "What do we do now?" Han was quiet for a moment. "We have 3 options. We accept the council's decision and live in our cage. We fight them and likely get exterminated. We find a 3rd option." "What 3rd option?" "I don't know yet," Hyun admitted. "But humanity didn't get this far by accepting what others told us was impossible. The council thinks they know us. They studied our history, our wars, our failures. But they don't understand what those failures taught us." Juan looked at him carefully. "What did they teach us? How to survive when everyone says we can't? How to adapt when the odds are against us? How to fight when we have no right to win?" Hyun stood up. He called us deficient, unstable, violent. Maybe they're right. Those same qualities are why we're still here. Every other species we've studied had advantages we didn't. Stronger bodies, longer lives, natural abilities. We had to invent technology to match. We survived not because we were the best, but because we refused to quit. Back on Earth, in a laboratory buried under the Swiss Alps, Mira Choi stared at her computer screen. She had been working on faster-than-light communication for 6 years. The Council had their own version, technology they refused to share with lesser species. But Mira didn't need their help. The test results on her screen showed something interesting. The Council's Sentinel ships that now surrounded Earth's solar. The system communicated with each other using quantum entanglement. The pattern was predictable, elegant, and potentially vulnerable. Myra smiled for the first time in days. High above Earth, on Unity Station, Heen watched the Sentinel ships take their positions. They formed a perfect sphere around the solar system. Each one a masterpiece of technology humanity couldn't match. Not yet, anyway. His personal communicator buzzed. It was a message from Mira. 3 words. Found a weakness, and allowed himself a small smile. The Council had declared humanity unworthy. They had judged Earth's people and found them lacking. They had locked humanity away like dangerous animals. They had made a mistake, a fatal one. They had given humanity a reason to prove them wrong. 6 months had passed since the Council's judgment. The Sentinel ships remained in position, silent and watchful. Any human vessel that approached the boundary was met with a warning shot that vaporized asteroids as a demonstration. The message was clear. Stay in your cage. Mars colony was suffering the most. Before the embargo, supply ships arrived every 3 weeks carrying food, medicine, and equipment. Now those ships sat grounded on Earth, unable to leave. The colony's hydroponic farms produced enough food to prevent starvation, but barely. Medical supplies were running critically low. Governor Taeyong-sung sent daily reports to Earth, each one more desperate than the last. 200,000 people lived on Mars, including 15,000 children. They had done nothing wrong, but they were prisoners just like everyone else. On Earth, protests filled the streets of every major city. Some people demanded the government accept the Council's decision and focus on making life better within the solar system. Others, calling themselves the Breakers, wanted immediate military action against the Sentinels. Violence broke out between the 2 groups regularly. Ji-won watched the news feeds from her office in Geneva. She had failed as a diplomat. The weight of that failure crushed her every morning when she woke up. But she refused to give up. There had to be a way to reach the Council, to make them understand. She had been sending messages for months to every Council species, trying to find anyone willing to listen. Most ignored her. Some sent back replies that were worse than silence, mocking humanity's situation or offering sympathy without action. But one species had responded. The Venetri. The Venetri were an old race, nearly as ancient as the Thulari. But they rarely involved themselves in Council politics. Their representative advisor Krell had been the only member to abstain from the vote. Not supporting humanity, but not condemning them either. Krell's message was brief and encoded. It contained coordinates for a secure communication channel and a time. Guan waited in her office as the appointed hour approached. Her hands were shaking slightly as she activated the channel. The holographic display flickered and Krell appeared. He was humanoid in shape but covered in what looked like living crystal. His voice sounded like wind chimes. "Ambassador Kim, I hope this channel is secure," Giwan said. "Why did you contact me?" "Because what the Council did to your species was wrong." Krell's crystalline face showed no emotion, but his voice carried conviction. "The vote was not about your worthiness. It was about fear." "Fear of what?" "Of change. The Council has maintained the same structure for 3,000 years. The same species hold power. The same rules govern everyone. Your people represent something dangerous to that order. You advance too quickly. In 500 years, perhaps less, humanity would rival the oldest species technologically. In 1,000 years, you would surpass them." Jiwan leaned forward. "Then help us. Speak for us in the Council." The Venetry position is precarious. We maintain neutrality to survive. If I openly support you, my species will suffer. But I can tell you that the vote was not unanimous. Several younger species opposed the embargo. They were threatened into compliance. The Thulari made it clear that any species supporting humanity would face economic sanctions or worse. So we're alone. But situations change. If humanity can demonstrate value to the galaxy, if you can show the other species that the Thulari are wrong, support will come. You must be patient. The transmission ended before Giwan could respond. She sat in the darkness of her office, thinking about Krell's words. Patience. But how much time did they have? Mars was dying slowly. Earth's economy was suffering, and the people's anger was growing. In a secure military facility beneath the Atlantic Ocean, Hyun Park reviewed the latest reports from Operation Outreach. For 3 months, his teams had been secretly deploying small satellites just outside the Sentinel perimeter. The satellites were coated in stealth materials that made them nearly invisible. Each one was no larger than a soccer ball, powered by microfusion cells that would last for decades. The satellites did nothing but watch and relay data. They recorded the Sentinel ship's patrol patterns, their communication frequencies, their energy signatures. Slowly, carefully, humanity was learning everything they could about their prison guards. Do-yeon. Lee piloted the shuttle that deployed the latest satellite. He was 28 years old and had been flying since he was 16. He had volunteered for outreach the day after the embargo began. Every mission took him closer to the Sentinel line, and every mission risked detection and death. "Package deployed," Do-yeon reported quietly. His shuttle was running on minimal power, drifting more than flying. The nearest Sentinel ship was 800 kilometers away. Close enough to detect him if he made any mistake. Confirmed Hyen's voice came through his earpiece. "Return to base." Do-yeon didn't acknowledge. He was watching his scanners as the Sentinel ship began to turn. Had it detected something? His heart hammered in his chest. The shuttle carried no weapons, no armor. If the Sentinel fired, he would be dead before he knew it. The Sentinel completed its turn and continued on its patrol route. False alarm. Doyon let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding and began the slow drift back to Earth. In her laboratory, Mira Choi was having her own breakthrough. She had been studying the quantum communication patterns of the Sentinel network for months. The patterns were beautiful in their complexity, but she had found something interesting. The Sentinels communicated with each other constantly, maintaining perfect coordination. But that communication relied on quantum entanglement, which meant it happened faster than light. The problem with quantum entanglement was that it was fragile. Certain types of radiation could disrupt it temporarily. Myra ran the calculations again. If they could generate a localized burst of the right type of radiation, they could create temporary blind spots in the Sentinel network. Small windows where the ships couldn't communicate with each other. The windows would only last a few seconds, maybe a minute at most. But it might be enough. She sent her findings to Heian immediately. On Mars, things were getting worse. A viral outbreak had started in the southern colonies. Without proper medicine, 12 people had died already. Governor Sung made the decision that everyone had been dreading. He authorized a supply run. The transport ship Destiny launched from Mars with a skeleton crew. It carried no cargo except a message beacon that broadcast on all frequencies. Medical emergency. Requesting humanitarian passage. We carry no weapons. We seek only to save lives. Destiny approached the Sentinel line slowly. The entire solar system watched. Every news network broadcast the scene. Giwan watched from her office, praying. Heian watched from his command center, his jaw clenched. The Sentinel ships moved to intercept. Their weapons powered up, visible as a bright glow even from millions of kilometers away. The Destiny stopped, waiting. The Sentinel ships fired. The Destiny exploded in a flash of light. 300 people died instantly. The crew, volunteers all, who knew the risk, but hoped the Council would show mercy. They were wrong. Earth erupted in rage. The breakers grew in number overnight. Police stations burned. Government buildings were attacked. The fragile peace that had held humanity together for 40 years cracked G1. Received an emergency summons to Earth's Security Council. Every major nation's leaders were present, either in person or by hologram. The question was simple. What do we do now? We fight, said the representative from the African Union. They murdered 300 civilians. We cannot let that stand. We'll lose, countered the European Federation's president. Their technology is superior. We'll be exterminated. The debate raged for hours. Juan listened, saying nothing. Finally, the Secretary General turned to her. Ambassador Kim, you've been silent. What is your recommendation? Yuan thought about Krell's words, about Mira's research, about the satellites Heian had been deploying, about Doyen's courage and the desperate people on Mars. She thought about the 300 people who had just died, hoping for mercy from those who had none to give. Prove them wrong, she said quietly. The Council called us unworthy. They said we're violent and unstable. If we accept this cage, they're right. If we fight conventionally and lose, they're right. But if we can show the galaxy that we're more than they believe, that we deserve our place among the stars, then we win, even if we lose. What does that mean? The Secretary General asked. It means we stop asking for permission, Juan said. It means we break their blockade. Not with weapons, but with determination. We scatter across the galaxy before they can stop us. We make contact with every species they've marginalized. We show the universe that humanity cannot be caged. The room fell silent. Finally, Heian spoke from his video screen. Operation Prometheus is ready. We've been planning for this. We can make it happen. The vote was called. It was unanimous. Humanity would defy the Council. Operation Prometheus launched on a Tuesday morning, Earth Standard Time. The timing was chosen carefully. Myra's calculations showed that the Sentinel network would be at its weakest during a brief alignment of Jupiter and Saturn, their combined gravitational fields creating minor disruptions in the quantum entanglement field. Hun had assembled 300 ships. Most were small, fast, and carried minimal crews. They weren't warships. They were explorer vessels, retrofitted cargo haulers, and even civilian yachts. Each ship had a destination programmed into their navigation computers. Each carried the same message stored in 100 different languages. Doyen sat in the pilot seat of the Indomitable, a frigate that had been designed for asteroid mining. Beside him, Salmon Bay checked the communication systems one last time. She was 25, a communications officer who had volunteered knowing she might never return to Earth. "All systems ready," Salmon reported. "Message beacon is active." Doyen nodded. Through his viewport, he could see dozens of other ships floating in formation, all waiting for the signal. Behind them, Earth hung like a blue marble. Ahead, invisible but deadly, the Sentinel line waited. "This is command." Hyan's voice came through every ship's speakers. "You know your missions? You know the risks. Whatever happens today, know that you carry humanity's hope with you. You are not soldiers. You are explorers. You are diplomats. You are proof that we cannot be contained. Godspeed to all of you." Mira initiated the sequence from her lab. Arrays positioned throughout the solar system activated simultaneously, generating precisely calibrated radiation bursts. The Sentinel network flickered. For exactly 43 seconds, blind spots appeared in their coverage. "Go," Hayon commanded. 300 ships burst forward at maximum acceleration. The Indomitable's engines screamed as Doyen pushed them beyond safety limits. Around him, other ships did the same. They had less than a minute to get through the gaps in the Sentinel coverage. The Sentinels reacted immediately. But they were confused. Their coordination was disrupted. By the time they reacquired their targets, the human ships were scattering in every direction, each one jumping to faster-than-light speed and disappearing. Doyen watched the Sentinel ships shrink behind him as the Indomitable jumped. They had made it. He looked at Salmon, who was crying and smiling at the same time. "We're free," she whispered. The Indomitable's destination was a system called Haven 7, located in a region the Council classified as frontier space. According to the data Earth had gathered over decades of secretly monitoring galactic transmissions, Haven was home to a species called the Broken. They were refugees from a war centuries ago, given a marginal world by the Council and then forgotten. When the Indomitable dropped out of FTL, they found Haven 7 exactly as described, a small gray world orbiting a dim star. The Broken had built their cities underground, visible only as the occasional structure on the surface. "This is the human vessel, Indomitable." Salmon broadcast. "We come in peace. We seek to make contact and offer friendship." The response took 3 minutes. A voice that sounded like grinding metal spoke in broken standard galactic language. "Humans, the quarantine species. You should not be here. The Council will punish you." "The Council already punished us," Doyen replied. "They locked us away and murdered our people when we asked for mercy. We don't recognize their authority anymore. We're here because we believe every species deserves dignity and freedom. We're here to offer trade, knowledge, and alliance." Silence. "Then, land at these coordinates. We will talk." The meeting with the Broken leaders took place in a cavern deep beneath the planet's surface. The Broken were insectoid, their bodies covered in damaged chitin that gave them their name. Their history was tragic. They had once been a proud species with 3 worlds. A neighboring empire attacked them without warning. The Council intervened, but only after 90% of the Broken population was dead. The survivors were given Haven 7 and told to be grateful. "The Council protects no one but themselves," the Broken Elder said. "Why should we trust you?" Doyen and Salmon spent 6 hours talking with them. They shared Earth's history, their struggles, their mistakes, and their dreams. They offered technology Earth had developed, including improved hydroponic systems that would help the Broken grow more food. They asked for nothing in return except friendship. Finally, the Elder spoke. "We accept your offer. But know this, humans. The Council will come for you. When they do, we are too weak to protect you." "We don't need protection," Doyen said. "We need witnesses. When the Council tries to destroy us, we need the galaxy to see what they really are." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Of the 300 ships that launched, 247 reached their destinations. The other 53 were destroyed by Sentinel ships or Council patrols. Over 1,500 humans died. But their sacrifice meant something. Contact was made with 38 different species. Some were minor colonies the Council had abandoned. Others were species denied Council membership for arbitrary reasons. A few were actually Council members, but low-ranking ones who resented the dominance of the ancient species. Each human ship delivered the same message. We are here. We will not be erased. Judge us by our actions, not their words. On Earth, Guan monitored the reports as they came in. Each successful contact was a victory. Each lost ship was a knife in her heart. She had sent those people to their potential deaths. Some didn't come back, but the operation was working. Across the galaxy, the story of humanity's defiance spread. Soman and her fellow communications officers broadcast everything. The murder of the Destiny's crew. The Council's unjust embargo. Humanity's desperate bid for freedom. The footage was raw and emotional. It showed humans as they truly were, flawed but determined, afraid but brave. Public opinion began to shift. On dozens of worlds, citizens protested their government's support of the embargo. The Council had maintained power through a carefully crafted image of benevolent authority. That image was cracking. Advisor Krell contacted Jiwan again. What you have done is either brilliant or suicidal. Possibly both. We had no choice, Jiwan replied. Would you prefer we died quietly in our cage? The Thulari are furious. They are demanding immediate military action against Earth. Let them come. The whole galaxy is watching now. If they destroy Earth, they prove everything we've said about them. You are gambling with billions of lives, Krell said. We were dead already. At least now we die fighting. Juan paused. Advisor Krell, I need to know. Will the Vinatri support us? The crystalline being was silent for a long moment. I have spoken with our council. We are divided. But I have chosen to act on my own. I will speak publicly against the embargo. I will call for humanity's recognition as a sovereign species with rights. It will cost me my position, possibly my freedom. But I have watched the galaxy stagnate for too long under the Council's rule. Your species is chaotic and imperfect, but you are alive in a way we have forgotten. Thank you, Juan said quietly. Do not thank me yet. The Thulari are mobilizing their fleet. War is coming. The announcement came 3 days later. Krell appeared before the full Galactic Council in an unscheduled session. He broadcast his speech across every major communication network in the galaxy. I stand before you today to denounce the embargo of humanity. This action was taken not out of justice, but out of fear. Fear that a young species might challenge the old order. Fear that change might threaten comfortable power. I have met with humans. I have studied their history and their culture. Are they perfect? No, but neither are we. The Council was meant to guide and protect all species. Instead, it has become a tool for the ancient to control the new. I call for the immediate end to the embargo and for humanity to be recognized as equals. If this body refuses, then I believe it has lost its moral authority to lead. The chamber erupted in chaos. The Thulari hierarch stood, his scales rippling with rage. This is treason. The Vinatri have violated council law. I have violated unjust law, Krell replied calmly. There is a difference. 3 other species representatives stood and joined Krell. They were smaller species, younger, with less power in the council. But their support mattered. The Council of 5 joins the Vinatri in supporting humanity, declared their speaker. The Thulare hierarch's response was immediate. Then you will share their fate. This council authorizes military action against both the human infestation and any species supporting them. Our fleets will cleanse this infection from the galaxy. The transmission ended. War had been declared. On Earth, Hune received the news and immediately activated every defense protocol they had. The victory of Operation Prometheus had bought them time and allies. But now came the real test. Doyon and Soman, still on Haven 7, watched the broken elder's reaction to the news. The ancient insectoid clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "The Thulari fleet has not been deployed in 800 years, the elder said. "They are powerful beyond measure. You cannot win." "Probably not," Doyon agreed. "But we can make them pay for every inch. And the whole galaxy will watch them destroy us for daring to be free." The elder was quiet for a long moment. Then, the broken remember what it means to fight for survival. The Thulari fleet was magnificent and terrifying. 600 capital ships, each 1 kilometers long, accompanied by thousands of support vessels. The fleet had been built over centuries, maintained by the most advanced species in the galaxy. It represented the Council's ultimate authority. The iron fist inside the velvet glove of diplomacy. War Marshal that commanded the fleet from the flagship Absolute. He was old even by Thulari standards, having served for 300 years. He had fought in the last major war, the one that established the Council's current structure. He viewed this mission as righteous. Humanity was a disease that needed to be cut out before it infected the rest of the galaxy.
How long until we reach the human system?
Deck asked his navigator. 18 days at current speed, Marshal. Maintain course. Broadcast our intentions on all channels. Let the galaxy see that defiance has consequences. The message went out. In 18 days, the Thulari fleet would arrive at Earth. Any human vessels or defensive positions would be destroyed. Earth itself would be occupied, and its people placed under direct Council control. The embargo was over. Now came subjugation. On Earth, Hune gathered his commanders. They had 18 days to prepare for a battle they couldn't win. The math was simple and brutal. Earth had 200 military ships, most of them light cruisers designed for patrol work. Their weapons were effective against pirates and asteroids. Against Thulari capital ships, they would be like throwing rocks at a tank. "We can't fight them directly," Hien said, stating the obvious. "So we don't. We fight like humans have always fought when outmatched. We use guerrilla tactics. Hit and run. Make them chase us. Make every victory cost them more than it's worth. They'll still reach Earth eventually," said Admiral Bowman Park, commander of Earth's defense fleet. "When they do, it's over." "Then we make sure the galaxy is watching when it happens," Han replied. "Salman has been broadcasting everything. The whole galaxy knows the Thulari fleet is coming to crush a species whose only crime was wanting to be free. Public opinion is shifting. If we can hold out long enough, political pressure might force them to stop." "That's a big if," Bowman said. "It's the only if we have." Doyon volunteered to lead the harassment campaign. His ship, the Indomitable, was fast and nimble. Along with 30 other volunteer ships, he would strike at the Thulari fleet as it advanced, trying to slow them down and inflict casualties. Mira worked day and night developing new weapons from the scraps they had. She couldn't build anything that would destroy a Thulari capital ship, but she could create problems. Mines that disrupted their sensors. Drones that forced them to waste ammunition. Electromagnetic pulses that temporarily disabled their shields. The first attack came on the 3rd day of the Thulari fleet's advance. Doyon's squadron dropped out of FTL space right in the middle of the fleet's formation. They launched everything they had, missiles and drones and electronic warfare packages, which then jumped away before the Thulari could respond effectively. The damage was minimal. One support vessel destroyed a few capital ships with damaged sensors. But the psychological impact was greater. The Thulari had expected to reach Earth unopposed. Instead, they were being harassed by gnats that refused to fight fairly.
"Cowards!"
Marshal Vec roared when he saw the battle reports. "They strike and run like insects." His second in command, a younger Thulari named Vex, spoke carefully. "It is effective, Marshal. We lost a ship. Our sensors are compromised. If they continue these attacks, we will reach Earth weakened. Then we will adapt. Increase scout coverage. Deploy point defense drones. The next time they appear, we will be ready." But Doyon and his squadron adapted too. They changed their tactics with every attack, never hitting the same way twice. Sometimes they attacked in force, sometimes with just one or two ships. Sometimes they struck at the fleet's vanguard, sometimes at the rear. They used the asteroids and gas clouds along the Thulari's route as cover. Over 10 days, they destroyed 15 Thulari vessels and damaged dozens more. They also lost 12 ships. Doyon watched good people die, friends he had trained with. Pilots who had families waiting on Earth, each loss hurt. But they kept fighting because the alternative was worse. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. The Broken, remembering their own desperate war, sent Hyan their complete military database. Included in that database was information about Thulari tactics from the war centuries ago. The Thulari hadn't changed their formations or strategies in all that time. Why would they? They had never lost. Hyan studied the data and found a weakness. Thulari capital ships relied on synchronized shield systems. When they flew in formation, their shields overlapped, creating an almost impenetrable barrier. But the synchronization required constant communication between ships. If that communication was disrupted, even briefly, gaps would appear. He sent the information to Mira. "Can you do it?" "Maybe," she replied. "I'd need to get close, plant specialized jammers on several ships simultaneously, and trigger them at exactly the right moment. It would take perfect coordination, with people who can do that. The plan required every asset they had. Doyon's squadron would launch the most aggressive attack yet, forcing the Thulari fleet to bunch together for mutual protection. During the chaos, stealth ships piloted by volunteers would slip through the fighting and attach jammers to specific capital ships. Then, at Hyan's signal, the jammers would activate. The attack was scheduled to happen at Kepler Station, a human outpost in neutral space. The station hosted a small colony of humans and 3 other species that had allied with Earth. It was also directly in the Thulari fleet's path. When Marshal Dex saw that the humans were defending the station, he was pleased. Finally, they stand and fight. We will crush them here and end this nuisance. The battle began as a disaster for humanity. The Thulari fleet emerged from FTL space in perfect formation, their weapons already charged. They opened fire on the human ships immediately. 3 cruisers exploded in the first volley. 5 more were crippled. Doyon led the Indomitable directly at the Thulari flagship missiles streaming from his launch tubes. It was suicide, and everyone knew it. But it drew attention. The Thular fleet focused their fire on the attacking human ships, exactly as planned. While the battle raged, 5 stealth ships moved through the chaos. They were piloted by volunteers who knew they probably wouldn't survive. One by one, they attached jammers to the targeted capital ships. 2 stealth ships were destroyed before they could reach their targets, but 3 succeeded. Hyan watched from his command center on Earth, monitoring the battle through remote sensors. The human casualties were mounting. 20 ships destroyed, 30 damaged. The station's shields were failing. In minutes, the colony would be exposed to Thulari guns, Hyan whispered, and triggered the jammers. For 3 seconds, the Thulari shield synchronization failed. Gaps appeared in their defensive formation. It wasn't much, barely large enough for missiles to slip through. But Hyan had positioned additional ships in orbit around Kepler Station. Their weapons already aimed at those exact locations. They fired everything: torpedoes, railgun rounds, even the station's defense cannons. The weapons streaked through the gaps and struck Thulari capital ships directly. 3 capital ships exploded. 4 more were badly damaged. The Thulari formation broke apart in confusion. For the first time in 800 years, their fleet was hurt. Marshal Dex stared at his displays in shock. How did they know? How did they penetrate our shields? The battle didn't end in human victory. They couldn't win. But the Thulari fleet was forced to retreat and regroup. The station was saved. The colony survived. More importantly, the entire galaxy watched it happen. Salman had broadcast every moment of the battle. They saw human ships sacrificing themselves to protect not just their own people, but other species. They saw the impossible happen, the mighty Thulari bleeding. The political impact was immediate. Across the galaxy, Protests grew larger. Even on council worlds, citizens demanded an end to the war. The Thulari had always claimed their might came from righteous authority. But what righteousness was there in crushing a species fighting for survival? What authority justified genocide? Marshal Deck received new orders from the Thulari High Command. The fleet would continue to Earth, but slowly. They would give diplomacy a chance to resolve the situation. The High Command didn't say it directly, but Deck understood. The war was becoming politically expensive. In his quarters on the Absolute, Deck studied recordings of the battle. He had underestimated humanity. He had thought them primitive and weak. But they had fought with courage and cleverness. They had inflicted real casualties on his fleet. He called for Vex. Your assessment of the humans? Vex chose his words carefully. They are formidable, Marshal. Not in strength, but in determination. They fight knowing they will lose, yet they fight anyway. They sacrifice themselves for each other and for species they barely know. If the circumstances were different, I would call them honorable. Honorable. Deck's scales rippled. They defy the council. They refuse their place. Their place was a cage, Marshal. What species would not fight such a judgment? Deck dismissed Vex without responding. But the words lingered. What species would not fight? The emergency council session was held not on Apex Prime, but on neutral ground chosen by the Venetri. The location was symbolic and deliberate. Earth itself. When the announcement came, shock rippled across the galaxy. The council, which had declared humanity unworthy, would now convene on the human homeworld. Some saw it as an insult, forcing humanity to host their judges. Others saw it as acknowledgement, an admission that Earth could no longer be ignored. G1 stood in the rebuilt Geneva Conference Center, watching as council ships descended through Earth's atmosphere. Each vessel represented a species that had voted to cage humanity. Now they were coming to humanity's home, and the power dynamic had shifted. Heen stood beside her. How do you want to play this? Not as supplicants, Guan said firmly. We're not asking for permission anymore. We're negotiating as equals. The council members arrived over 3 days. They were housed in specially built facilities that accommodated their various biological needs. The Thulari delegation was last to arrive and noticeably smaller than the others. Marshal Deck himself came, along with just 3 advisors. The mighty had been humbled. Advisor Krell greeted G1 privately before the session began. His crystalline form seemed dimmer than before. I paid a price for my support, he said. I am no longer an advisor. My people stripped my title, but I do not regret it. Then what do I call you? Quan asked. Krell is enough. Titles mean little now. Paused. The vote will be close. Many species still fear the change you represent, but they also fear what will happen if the Thulari continue this war. You cost them lives at Kepler Station. You proved they can bleed. That matters more than you know. The session opened to a watching galaxy. Billions tuned in to see what would happen. The chamber was filled with tension. The Thulari delegation sat in one section, isolated. The species that had allied with humanity sat in another. The undecided filled the middle. The Thulari representative spoke first. It was not Marshal Vec, but a diplomat named Yor. This session is unnecessary. Humanity violated council law. They broke quarantine. They attacked council forces. They must be punished, Krell responded. Humanity was unjustly imprisoned. They sought peaceful membership and were denied through fear, not justice. When they were locked away, they did not attack. They explored. They made friends. When the council murdered their civilians, they defended themselves. Every action humanity has taken was in response to our aggression. They are unstable, Yor argued. Their history proves it. Their history proves they can change, Krell countered. They unified their world. They eliminated war among themselves. They reached for the stars. And when we told them they were unworthy, they proved us wrong. Giwan had been granted permission to speak. She stood, her voice calm but carrying across the chamber. I did not come here to ask for membership in your council. I came to propose something different, a new structure. one that recognizes the rights of all spacefaring species, not just the ancient and powerful. Murmurs filled the chamber. You started to object, but the session's moderator, a representative of the neutral concordat species, gestured for silence. Let her speak. Giwan activated a holographic display. The current council structure has maintained peace, yes, but at what cost? Species that develop too quickly are suppressed. Those deemed inferior are marginalized. Entire civilizations are kept in cages, told their natural desire for growth and exploration is wrong. This is not peace. This is control. She changed the display to show the species that had allied with humanity. These species have been forgotten by the Council, cast aside because they are weak or inconvenient. But they are sapient beings who deserve dignity. Humanity proposes a federation structure, a system where membership is based on principles and actions, not age or power, where all species have a voice and decisions are made democratically. Chaos Yor said, "You would destroy the order that has maintained galactic stability for millennia." "We would replace stagnation with growth," Juan replied. "The galaxy is vast. There is room for everyone, but not under a system where a few ancient species control everything and everyone else must obey or be destroyed." The debate continued for hours. Species after species spoke. Some supported the Thulari. Others supported humanity. Many were uncertain. The vote was called at the end of the session's third day. The question was simple. Should humanity be recognized as a sovereign species with full rights to explore and expand? And should the council structure be reformed to allow broader participation? The votes came in slowly. Each species representative activated their console, casting their decision. The tally displayed on a massive screen visible to everyone. The Thulari voted no, as expected. So did 3 other ancient species. But then surprises came. 2 of the ancient species voted yes. The younger species, those who had felt the council's control most heavily, voted yes, almost unanimously. The species humanity had befriended during Operation Prometheus voted yes. Even some who had initially supported the embargo voted yes, swayed by public pressure from their own people. When the final vote was counted, the result was clear. 62% in favor of humanity and reform. 38% against. War stood immediately. The Thulari do not accept this vote. It is invalid. The council structure cannot be changed by simple majority. It was not a simple majority, Krell said. It was a clear mandate. The galaxy has spoken. If the Thulari refuse to accept this, they reveal themselves as tyrants, maintaining power through fear, not legitimacy. Yor looked to Marshal Vec, who had remained silent throughout. The old warrior stood slowly. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. "I have served the Council for 300 years, Vec said. I believed in its mission. To maintain order, to prevent chaos, to protect the galaxy." He paused. "But I have also learned something in these past months. Order without justice is tyranny. Humanity showed me that. They fought knowing they would lose. They sacrificed themselves for principles. They earned respect through action, not through age or power." Vec turned to Yor. "The Thulari will accept this vote. We will participate in the new Federation structure. But know this." He looked at Jiwan. "We will be watching. If humanity brings chaos, if your grand promises of equality and growth lead to suffering, we will act." "We expect nothing less," Jiwan said. "Accountability goes both ways." The session ended with the formal signing of the Charter of Free Species. It guaranteed the rights of all spacefaring civilizations. It established a democratic federation to replace the old council structure. It created systems for peaceful dispute resolution and mutual defense. Most importantly, it acknowledged that no species, no matter how ancient or powerful, had the right to imprison or control another. The signing ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. One by one, species representatives added their marks to the charter. When it came to humanity's turn, Giwan signed not just her name, but the names of all the humans who had died to reach this moment. The crew of the Destiny. The pilots who fell at Kepler Station. The volunteers who didn't return from Operation Prometheus. We honor their sacrifice, she said, and we promise to be worthy of it. Hyun watched from Earth, allowing himself a rare smile. Operation Prometheus had worked beyond their wildest hopes. The Sentinel blockade was being dismantled even now. Human ships were free to explore. Mars would receive supplies within days. Doyen received a promotion to admiral despite his youth. He was given command of the newly formed Federation Defense Fleet, a voluntary force composed of ships from multiple species. His first act was to visit every species that had allied with humanity during the war, thanking them personally. On Haven 7, the Broken Elder wept when Doyen arrived. We thought we were forgotten, abandoned, but you remembered us. You fought for us when you could barely fight for yourselves. We're all in this together now, Doyen said. That's what the Federation means. Mira continued her scientific work, but now with access to technology and knowledge from dozens of species. She established joint research initiatives, freely sharing Earth's discoveries while learning from others. Within months, breakthrough advances happened in medicine, energy production, and space travel. The galaxy, so long stagnant under Council control, began to innovate again. Salmon became humanity's cultural ambassador. She traveled from world to world, sharing Earth's music, art, literature, and history. She also collected the stories of other species, bringing them back to Earth, museums and libraries filled with galactic knowledge. Humanity was learning not just to be part of the galaxy, but to celebrate its diversity. Not everyone accepted the new order. The Thulari, while honoring the vote, retreated to their territory. They maintained their massive fleet and made it clear they considered the Federation an experiment that would fail. Some other species refused to join, preferring isolation, but most embraced the change. G1 gave her first address to the Federation Assembly 6 months after the charter signing. She stood before representatives of over 200 species, all equal voices in the new government. 6 months ago, humanity was told we were unworthy, genetically deficient, culturally inferior, dangerous to galactic stability. The council that judged us was wrong, but not for the reasons they thought. They called us violent, and they were right. Our history is filled with war,